Local ecological knowledge is knowledge that is tied to a specific place or places, and it is obtained through extended experience with and observation of the place. It differs from TK in the sense that it doesn't require an ancient or even multi-generational accumulation of knowledge. It does not require that the population be indigenous, and it does not require embedding in broader shared culture. I conducted my LEK observations and field research in the greater Vedavu area. Specifically, I honed in on the areas around the main campground near Waltz Wall and the Turtle Rock trailheads, as well as the greater Blair area. The LEK concepts that I observed and researched were focused around two primary things. First, I wanted to consider how the climate and weather patterns such as freeze-thaw erosion and wind erosion have shaped the landscape throughout time. I've always been fascinated by the unique rock formations of Vedavu, but I wanted to try and understand how what I observed could have been different from what someone might have observed there 500 years ago, and how weather patterns are continuously influencing Vedavu. Second, I want to observe the impacts in recreation and other land uses such as agriculture and logging have had on the area. As a recreationist who regularly explores Vedavu, I wanted to take a step back and observe how human use has influenced the area through time. Although the timeline of these changes is far more contemporary than the changes caused by weather patterns. Both of these aspects of my observations relate to greater LEK concepts of temporal change. The climate and weather patterns that have influenced the formations of Vedavu are rooted in ecologically driven temporal change, while the impacts of human use through recreation, logging, and agricultural operations are rooted in anthropogenic driven temporal change. The methodology behind conducting my fieldwork was based on extended observations I made from time spent in the Vedavu area and keeping a detailed field journal of my observations and findings. I chose this specific methodology based on our class session focused around keeping a field journal. I decided to go this route because while participating in the field journal exercise in class, I felt myself becoming more in tune with all the ecological aspects around me. If I could have success with this methodology in my own urban backyard, I was eager to try it in a more formal setting where my observations would influence my research and vice versa. For example, when I would observe a wide crack, perhaps wider than others around it, I would record it in my field journal and made a note to come back to that observation. When I returned from the field, I could easily access my observations and determine through scholarly research that freeze-thaw erosion was a likely process that formed that crack, along with many of the cracks Vedavu is famous for. The concepts of temporal change were far easier to observe and contextualize after I returned from the field, armed with the observations in my field journal. This helped me focus my scholarly research from experts in the field of geology and ecology to what I was directly observing in the field. Through conducting my fieldwork in the Vedavu area, I believe that my understanding of LEK shifted. Going into the project, I thought that I had a lot of familiarity and knowledge of the area. I quickly realized that the knowledge I'd gained through recreating in the area is only a small part of a larger story and knowledge base that I had yet to tap into. When I'm climbing or hiking in Vedavu, I'm honed in on the task at hand. My mind is occupied by making sure I'm on course for my desired destination, or that I'm taking all the necessary precautions while climbing a multi-pitch route. This doesn't leave much room for withdrawn observations. While engaged in fieldwork, and there with the sole intention of observing, I found that I noticed a lot of smaller things that would have previously gone unnoticed. I was conscious of the wind, its force, its direction, and how these persistent winds, over time, helped to create the jungle of rocks that I wandered through. Seeing moisture in a crack didn't just mean it was a route that I should avoid for the day, but instead pointed to a broader ecological process. When I removed myself from the perspective of a recreationist, I was able to consider more critically how extensive recreation impacted, shaped, and even hurt the area through time. I think this project, especially the fieldwork aspect, made me reconsider the roles that I usually play, and instead pushed me to become more curious and observant in my everyday life.